Hello, everyone, and welcome to End of Life University podcast, where we share real talk about life and death. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Wyatt, and thanks for joining me here today for episode number 316. I'm going to share with you part 2 of my deep dive conversation with Deanna Cochran. And in this part of our conversation, we talk about COVID, self-care, and meeting people where they are. If you missed part 1 of our conversation, you may want to go back to last week's episode so you can start there. And I think this portion will make a little bit more sense to you. So as always, if you stay tuned after the interview, I will come back with a few takeaways and to say goodbye. So here we go with part 2 of my deep dive with Deanna Cochran. One thing that I saw happen last year during COVID, when families were unable to be together at the end of life, which was just devastating, is that it felt to me like a lot of people in our end of life world were just scrambling and felt completely helpless. Like, I don't know what to say to people now. Now they can't be at the bedside with their loved one. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what we should do. And for a while, it felt like everyone lost their bearings because the situation has changed so much. We can't just teach people how to do what they used to do by sitting vigilant, being at the bedside. And the one thing that came through to me about a gift from these COVID years, first of all, on the one hand, is to let go of what we think should change or what should happen, but also to remember that love isn't limited to face-to-face contact. Even if we can't be with our loved ones, they can still know that we're loving them and sending them love and caring about them. And that was maybe one of the most important lessons for everyone to learn from COVID and from the distances that were necessary between us. And I was curious about your experience over the last year and a half and how it affected the work that you do.
Yeah, when it came out, I moved to an apartment. I moved from the country back to the city, and I had moved into an apartment at the end of February. And then, my dad and my sister were up with me and all that. And then 2 weeks later, the whole COVID thing exploded. I remember it was something like that. It was like COVID was being talked about, but the whole shutdown of the world happened right after that. And I remember because I was alone. I was now in an apartment by myself, and we were all freaking out. I remember when it all started. And I didn't know what to do, Karen. I knew I had this school. I knew that there were people in the world that were even more clueless than me about companioning people. And I thought, let's just get out here together and not know what to do together. And so I invited everybody who had ever been part of the school to come back for months. They came back for months, and we just were with each other. And there's enough people, and I had public talks, just learning from the people out there who were in the hospitals. And most of the time, what they did is they just sat in those sessions and cried, the healthcare workers, because they were so overwhelmed. They couldn't even talk. And I remember sending out an email when it first happened in March and saying, look, none of us know what's going on. I certainly don't. And this is what a doula does. These are the principles and the concepts of doula care, of doula companioning. And let this lead us. Let this guide us. Because people felt no leadership. Like you said, everybody was kind of scrambling around. And I didn't know it would be taken like this, but I had several people reply to that email saying, I finally feel grounded. I finally feel like there's some leadership here around how to handle this. And all I did was share the concepts of our doula care. So one of the biggest things around doula consciousness is you walk into a place and you have no idea what's going on. As a hospice nurse, you have to act in a way that you do know what's going on. And you're the plan of care person, and you go in there and you fix stuff, and that's just the way you operate. You have to. That's part of your job. And then you turn that hat off and be with them and all that. And a good hospice nurse knows how to do all that. after some time in training. Well, the doulas, they are not medical plan providers. They know that, they're companions. And so what we teach is that you show up without your template. Everyone thinks they need to go in there with a plan and a template and an assessment sheet, and they're trying to act like little mini healthcare providers. But if I could show you, here's my notebook that I use for everything. And when I go see a family, that's the same notebook I take. I just I turn the page, and I'll write down everything we talk about. I take a picture of it for me, and I leave the page for them. And that way, we don't need a bunch of paperwork like we were talking before. And we don't need a plan. We go and we be. And so the principles of listening, of being there, of being comfortable, starting to get a relationship with our aloneness, dealing with our own suffering, so that way we can be there for others, understanding that everybody is stressed and maxed out to the top. But if we behave as the doula in the group, there's our place. Instead of adding chaos, we're going to now add some stability. And then, of course, we need to get our own support. Like all the principles of being a doula actually was a guiding light for us, that I didn't know what else to do. I had no idea. Nobody knows what to do with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had to be guided somehow, and all of us are in circles of people. And there were so many people suffering alone. And so we came up with new concepts of being there without being there. The shamans and the Reiki and the people that understand prayer, like long distance prayer, right? Prayer. The Christian prayer is long distance prayer. It's sending energy. Every religion and has some kind of way where you're lifting people up without being in their presence.
Yeah, and it makes me think that this experience we're still in right now with COVID, when I was saying before things are in transition right now, I believe this is part of the transition, and that all of us are learning things right now that are really important for the future. And I hope, I believe and hope that this is also having an impact on medical providers and hopefully medical training in the future too.
Yeah, I hope so. I think about those of us who are in a place where this is like me. I'm in an apartment. It was a nice apartment. I'm back at home now, but I had the money to have a nice apartment. I was working online, so that didn't change too much. I knew I was loved. I didn't have stress in my house because it was just me. I had to deal with loneliness and deal with that. But I guess I was privileged. I'm not guessing I was. I didn't have to worry about a lot of stuff. Well, the people, where we found is the people that lost everything, that had to work outside. They had to work outside the home. They were making the least amount of money among us, living with many people in the house, maybe people having big issues, mental illness, all of that stuff. They're not getting to learn higher lessons. It's only us who have this gift of having our needs provided for. So, I remember too feeling that call of people, like you'll meet somewhere like on a walk, or of course being all this distance and with our mask and being scared. But I remember running into people that having few kids and no money and no food, and I saw people getting groceries for people. Like I saw that, and I did that. My sister did. There was a woman that she hadn't heard from in a while, and so she called her from her meditation group, and the woman had cancer and she was going through treatments, and her family wasn't there, and she was alone, and she was a wreck. She had no food. She was by herself. She was exhausted. She had no energy to take care of herself. And so my sister went and took care of, like, cleaned things up, got her going, and then knew to take her meals and got people involved. But she didn't want to ask for help because she didn't want to be a burden. So, it's just like wherever those of us who can meet the needs of people who can't and not be upset about it. There's a lot of, I don't know, sometimes that judgment of helping people who we think aren't helping themselves. I just was listening. I don't know if you know of Dr. Gabor Mate's work.
Yes.
I love listening to him because he talks about not judging and being present to ourselves in a compassionate inquiry. And that really does translate to being with others in that compassionate inquiry, like being curious. And I don't know, Karen, it's just like this whole crisis, it's stressed us all out to the max. And those of us who have grown, I feel, are very privileged indeed, that had the space and room in their life to do that. And that I feel the responsibility is on us even more to reach out to the people who are devastated by this,
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I agree with that so much. And so much light has been shed on disparities in our society, healthcare disparities, but all types of disparities, so that we can't deny that or look away or avoid thinking about it anymore.
Right.
It's a reality that's very visible to us now.
Yeah, and our eyes were closed to that for the most part. I think we got comfortable, and COVID woke people up in a startling way. And I think there's still a lot of people in denial about it because it's too painful. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I wanted to ask you, Deanna, about the idea of self-care, which is something that for me is I'm actually just now actually trying to bring that more into my own life, because I've always been like a workaholic and never really thought that I needed anything. But I'm just curious to know if you teach doulas about caring for themselves, and if you have any self-care practices that you do.
Well, it's not like I know much about that. I'm just a person on the journey myself too. What another thing I didn't realize when I created the program is that all in it is self-care. And it's not like I thought of it that way. I think it's just a knowing from the desperation of being a hospice provider that you're actually in the trenches, the desperation of being on an oncology floor. And I remember I was only there 7 months, but I'll tell you that they're very experienced nurses. They were amazing. And I can't tell you how many times they said, I have never seen this before. And it was traumatic to be there and watch it and imagine the person going through it. And so often they would say, I've never seen this before. And we'd have to, they would be figuring out what to do. Or you walk into a room and only 2 blood pressure cuff machines on the whole floor. And you walk into a room and immediately the nurse was so good, intuitively saw that patient needs to go to ICU, running the bed down, walk in a room and then run that bed down. And so I think it's because and then like I told you, I was with many people with cancer in very difficult situations for most of my hospice nursing. That's pretty traumatic to be on the side, to be in the middle of that, and then on the side while your comrades are working in that, kind of like you get this, I don't know, where you're just going to stick it out, stand in there. Who else is going to do it? You got to do it, buck up, get there. But I'll tell you what happened is I feel like, as I saw nurses having strokes, heart attacks, leaving the field, as I ended up in the hospital one time for 3 days and I couldn't breathe and nobody understood what was going on. And at the time I was seeing a DO, just, preventive medicine, how they're holistic. And I was with him like 5 years before this happened. And when I came out of the hospital, I said, what happened? I mean, they don't even still know what's wrong with me. And he goes, Deanna, you're in the midst of huge suffering. And I know I have never seen anybody take better care of themselves than I've seen you. I know you. I know you prophylactically. You go to therapy when nothing's wrong just to make sure you're okay because of all the grief you're in. And you might not feel it, but you know it's there. And you come to me. He goes, but every now and then your body just will go, backfire. You don't know why. But I'm telling you, just because you're caring for yourself doesn't mean the effects of all this is not really, affecting you. And I just saw so much that and now when I talk to people, I really feel it's barbaric what we do to hospice employees, that one day we're going to look back, it might take us another 50 years and go, can you believe the early days of hospice? We had human beings working with 10 to 20, mostly now 15 to 20 families at a time. Each circle of family and friends are grieving the dying, and it's not always pretty, the dying, right? And It's like barbaric to me. So now looking back, I'm not in it anymore. When I was in it, I didn't even think about it. You just did it. Yeah. And now that I'm not in it, I think it's really, unacceptable, but it's what you have to do. Anyway, but around self-care, I remember all the things I did. Like my doctor told me, you did therapy, you did I did healing, I did body work. I always have believed in going to some kind of spiritual group or church or something. I've always wanted community. I've always had a mentor. I've always had, I have sought out this path since I've been in my early 20s. I knew in my early 20s, I was in so much pain and I didn't know why. But I was in so much pain. I used to cry a lot and just say, God, I used to cry out to God and I would just say, please help me. Please help me. What am I supposed to do? And I didn't even have something to point at, somebody had a car wreck or somebody died or I got, some kind of terrible thing happened to me. It was just, I didn't know. So I feel so grateful that I was aware that I needed some help and that I needed a loving help and understanding. I knew that. And so that journey, I've always been on it since I've been in my early 20s. And so weaved into the program is right from the beginning, I say, whatever you're doing now, ramp it up. Whatever you're doing now is not enough to deal with what you're about to deal with as you study. Because the things come, and I said, I want you to take plenty of time, back off, because I don't have just a weekend program or a couple of weeks, or come here and then come back and come. It's constant at your own pace, but that's what I've learned from people over the years is that you need to pace yourself around when you're having feelings. Anytime I'm having feelings that are heavy, I know it's not a present day. It's something in the past that's getting triggered. I know that if I'm with a family and I'm getting all jacked up, it's because I'm getting triggered from a situation from me. And what a lot of people want to say is, oh, that was a sad situation. I feel for them. Not really, unless it's just a little bit. If it's big, you got to go work on it. You got to take it home. And so that huge awareness right there, people have said has been so helpful, because when you get it right sized, and there's another path I follow, it's an energy medicine path, and they constantly talk about in there everything being in right relationship, right size, right relationship. So anything that's going on is inside of me. It's not you. And we talk a lot about that. There's a lot of peoplell aware of that come in. I think, birds of a feather, you kind of resonate with each other, right? And so that journey plus the pause, we talk a lot about being quiet. What does it take to be quiet? It takes a lot. It takes a lot of awareness to realize that you're uncomfortable. And I learned that from a hospice palliative physician in my first hospice agency. I was beside myself with a patient that was having a hard time breathing, and I don't care how much morphine we gave him. It was his dying day. It wasn't getting better. I think he had an embolus now, looking back. But I was a wreck. But I kept calling everybody. What do we do? What do we do? I called the hospice, another physician, all my nurse friends. Everybody said, you're doing everything you can. So you just need to get it together. So I did. I practiced, like whatever they told me to do, I did it in the moment. The family was fine because I was midwifing them and they were peaceful and singing and all this. But then I go out to the car and I needed so much support. And what that physician told me at IDT, she said, Deanna, that was yours. That was yours. So whenever you feel big stuff, you need to go take care of it. And I'm like, really? I thought I was feeling this way because I'm watching suffering. And she said he wasn't suffering. How was the family? I said, the family was cool. Well, if he was suffering, the family wouldn't have been cool because they're psychically connected to him and they would have been freaking out too, you know? So I learned a lot.
What a good reminder. And I was thinking how often our self-care tips involve doing something for yourself physically, like get enough rest, eat a healthy diet.
Absolutely.
But what's coming through to me that you're saying is that the real payoff is if you're taking care of yourself emotionally, looking at your own issues within, and also spiritually, that, we can handle a certain amount of physical stress if we're caring for ourselves emotionally and spiritually. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, what I'm learning, I think my journey is, I've learned, for me, this is my belief, emotions, trauma, anything I've ever been through is in my cells. It's in my body. Emotions live in my body. So whatever happens that I don't dismiss or doesn't dispel or, dissipate or whatever out there is stored in my body. So and then also emotions are a reaction of something I believe. So if I'm believing something that's not quite right, then all my emotions get all twirled up around it. How am I going to be there for you? So it really is my belief that if I can take care of my emotional state, my energetic state is really the most important in my opinion, then everything will become in right relationship. Now, I am very overweight. So what's all that about? Well, I don't know. I'm trying my best. So there's things, some people, they can't move around too good. Some people, they are stunted in this way or that. We all have our thing. And until I'm dead, I'm going to have something to work through and get better. But my consciousness is there for me because I know I'm my biggest tool. I'm the biggest tool in the shed for working with people. And what do people do? Artisans that have tools. Think of a sculptor. Think of anybody chipping away at something. Think of anybody painting. They take care of their tools. Mm-hmm. They take good care of them, and they take tender care of them. And they wrap them up and they protect them from the elements, and they oil them, and they do. So I feel we need to do the same thing. And sometimes you might already have a very strong way, but there's always something to be more aware of, all of us.
Yeah, so true. And I know before we started recording, you mentioned that you have, you're offering a lifetime component to your program for doulas, which makes so much sense to me because we're always in the process of learning and growing. There's always something new, and we've talked a lot about this journey that we're all on, right. And the journey doesn't just end at 6 months.
Right. Yeah. Now that there's so many programs, I told you, we were the first ones to have an end-of-life doula certificate program. And so all along, when I was the only one, I felt access was the most important. So I kept it very cheap, and I just wanted to serve whoever wanted to do it. I wanted it available. And people will say, well, do you vet your students? Hell no, I don't vet my students. I'll work with anybody, anywhere, because every community, I don't care what you're doing, if you're in prison, if you're this, I don't care, because you're going to be around someone dying one day, and I want you to feel like you can be there in a way that will be helpful. But now that there's so many programs, I think NEDA, the National End of Life Doula Alliance, I spoke to one of the board members recently, and I think she said there's over 50 programs. When she told me that, I said, okay, now I'm going to do what I want. And what I want is I want to be there. I've always been there for the people making, big change, real change. I've not worked with thousands of people in the way of like this. I have trained thousands of people when you take in all the public education, but I like to work with a few people who have big ideas. They don't have to be too big, but my expertise is best utilized by someone who wants to go out there and make a difference. It might be just in their own family, but they are more than just interested. The people that are just interested, they can come if they want to, but the people that will best, that I'm the best at, is the people that have big plans. Now, people with big plans, it's always in stages. You're not going out there with the big plan. You have to start here. And you take your little baby steps, and you have to integrate end of life. You have to integrate all your history. You have to shift with all of that. Somebody's going to die in your family. You're going to back off a minute. You got to take care of yourself, this and that. You might get sick. We've had people die in our program, and got terminal illness. And I mean, things happen. So in my world, I love the idea, now I'm doing it, where you come in and just, we're with you. I'm here for the long haul. And we're doing, just everything. I'm being here coaching me. And then I have other people too. But I mean, I'm the main one because they're coming for my perspective. I'm not the best hospice nurse. I'm not the best doula. I don't claim to be any of that. I do have a perspective that because I've been around every area of this, I can help you grow. I've done it all. I've done big corporate contracts. I've done one-to-one families. I've done hospice nursing. I've done discharge planning from hospital to home, nursing home. I was supervisory charge weekend. They hired me because they saw how good I was with their families, and that's what they needed. I was MDS coordinator in a very, very poor nursing home where they couldn't pay the trash collector, so the dumpster was out. I mean, I've been everywhere, and we weren't even going to get paid, but I was in stand-up meetings every morning because I was one of the managers. I was in stand-up meetings every morning in that particular one where they talked about all the issues of care and coming from the hospital to there, and they were very poor. So I learned a lot I would have never learned otherwise. Even a couple times they said, we're sorry, but we don't know if we can pay you this week. And we're like, oh, okay. And I had to think about this. I've never been in a place like that, but I hung in there because I learned so much and it meant a lot to be there. But you're going to scale. You're going to want to expand. You might want to do something different. Things are going to go on with your own family. You're going to have clients that need all of that, Karen. So if you just, I used to do this where they have 4 months of coaching, get to the program anytime they want. We're there. They're in the group. I'm talking in there. But the actual live face-to-face, I thought we need to be like IDT. We need to be like IDT. And somebody needs to be around that knows what's going on. And I do. And now that people have been trained, it's been a while now, maybe 4 or 5 years, there are more and more people that have trained, that have worked with families. But doulas don't work with families like hospice people. They're not working with even one person a week. You know what I mean? Doulas are probably working with one person, if they're lucky, every few months. But there's other things doulas can do where they can generate revenue and where they can make a difference, not just serving families. So there's a lot that people with this end-of-life heart and they really want to make a difference. There's a lot you can do that's not strictly the role of vigil doula,
Yeah.
And now I'm going to get to help people more in that because in 4 months, let's just say it's only 4 months. You can get through our program in 16 weeks. It's a lot. Most people take 6. But even that, you're just kind of getting your bearings. Now, after you kind of get your bearings, you want to develop the art of the practice. You want to develop the actual practice structure. You need your boundaries. How do I deal with healthcare? All of that kind of stuff. And it just makes sense that we do it together over time.
And it definitely does. And because it seems like we're in such a dynamic situation right now.
Yeah.
Some doulas might be in communities where there's a lot of awareness around what death doulas do and a lot of demand for their services, or they might be in a community where no one's ever heard of it and no one feels comfortable with it and they have to start from scratch and educate people and talk to people.
I think that most people aren't aware of doulas. I don't see any demand. Where I see the demand when they're combined with something like home funerals or they have something like, I know this group in California, I talked to the woman there, and they were doing, this is what it is, actually what it is. It's that they were doing caregiving for people who were dying. So there was an actual caregiving service. And they also did an actual home funeral service. So you see the difference between hiring a death doula like, what is that and what are they going to do? But I will hire a caregiver. Mm-hmm. I'll hire somebody if I want a home funeral. And then, oh, you also do advanced directives. Oh, you also will help me through MAID. Oh, I just think that we're so new. How I help people to get out there is like, look, I don't know if I would lead with end-of-life doula, death doula, because you're only going to get the people who acknowledge that they're dying. And that's really only going to be their last couple of weeks of life for most people. Hospice, let's learn from hospice. Hospice has had to work very, very hard to get people to refer earlier than the last week or two of life. I mean, I've done a lot with dementia and people coming because they always look like they're dying and then they, bounce back. And people with end-stage heart disease, they look like they're dying and then they bounce back. So we are keeping them longer, but most other people, nobody's acknowledging they're dying. So who are you going to work with? But if you walk through the door of the practical, any doulas listening, please listen to me and at least chew on this. If you walk through a practical door and then say, I work with people in advanced illness, or I work with people with serious illness. Now you have a group of people that will hear you. Oh, I'm in serious illness. Oh, we're in advanced illness. And we need an organizer. We need a gardener. We need a whatever. We need someone to help us with papers. We need a planner. Okay. And now you can say, and I also provide end-of-life doula services. That's how I recommend saying it, because that way someone doesn't have to accept their death to work with you. And you're a person who's very well trained in what dying looks like and how to help get them resources, that you'll see it long before it gets there. And they might not even say, okay, now I want your end-of-life doula services, but you're a doula and you'll always be able, to help them that way. We have to learn from hospice that it's a hard sell. Hospice, people,
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you're saying. We have to figure out, how do we get the message to people? We can't be expecting other people to come to us ready for our message, because that's not how it's going to get out there right now. No. And you're also bringing to mind for me something else that I think about. I know there's a lot of emphasis on making sure we use the words dying and death when we talk to people instead of using euphemisms. But I still believe there's a place, like you're saying, that sometimes we don't lead with death and dying in the beginning. Sometimes we may speak euphemistically. We may talk to people where they're at and what they're comfortable with, and not use the words that are most likely to make them want to run away and resist what we have to offer.
Well, I mean, you're saying something, that's how I live. Okay, so I know that, like, just think of any movement. There are the people that are radical and they're out there, and you say dying and death. That's what I want. And I'm there as the spokesperson for dying and death, and say it, say death, say death, say death. And Reverend Bodie B is one of my colleagues and mentors and friends. He's all about that. Because, Deanna, why are you making it soft? I'm like, you know what? In my belief system, if you say passing, I'm going to say passing. If you say kick the bucket, I'm going to say kick the bucket. If I'm talking to you, if I make you, in my worldview, if we're talking and you're getting to talk it out, my role is to shut up and let you talk it out, because I already have accepted death. I've already got it. I'm on the program. So why am I fighting with you as you work it out? I'm a doula. Shut up, Deanna. Who cares what you think? And let that person work it out. So when they're working it out, if they say, and we lost him, people in dark humor will say, well, where is he? You're going to find him. No, I say lost him. I'm sorry you lost him. Because if I do anything else, then they're going to put resistance up. And if my goal is that people feel empowered and they expand their consciousness and their awareness and their worldview, that always happens inside. It's not me banging you on the head with it. It happens inside. Now, sometimes you do need to be banged on the head, and that's where the radicals are. And to me, I think we need all of us. You need the ones who might not ever say death or lost or whatever. And then you have people like me where I just speak the language. When in Rome, be with Romans. That's what I do. I speak whatever language they're speaking.
Yes, I agree with you because that's how I operate. And I guess that's how I've had to operate as a physician in the sense that some people, there are words that are terrifying to some people.
Yes.
And if I'm trying to educate them about something and I use a word that sends them into a place of fear, they won't hear another thing that I have to say. Yeah. And so I have to be really sensitive to what language they're ready for and what they can tolerate. So I guess you and we're on the same page there, but you're right. There's a need for the people who are willing to be standing up and saying, wait a minute, we're talking about death and dying and dead people here.
Yes, death and dead, and they're going to rot, and worms are going to come out of their eyes, and we're going to compost them, and we're going to put them over here. Like, people are freaking out with all that, but it's getting their attention.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
But that's not my box to stand on, but I'm so happy everybody's kind of participating in their way,
Well, and the important thing to mention is you're not saying passed away because you're afraid to say the word death and dead. Right. You're using it because the other person is more comfortable with that. Yeah. And because we need to be gentle with people, especially at a really sensitive and vulnerable time. That's all.
I look at it too, kind of like proselytizing. That's not my gig. I'm not going to sit there and make you convert to accepting your death. I love Dr. Diane Myers. I love her. She's one of my favorites. And she says it too. And I thought I was weird because this whole end of life movement, everybody wants everybody to accept their dying. It's all sacred and rituals and all that. And I love all that. I have all my rituals. I love all that. But when she said it, I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly how I feel. I think it's arrogant, actually, to assume that everybody needs to accept their dying. In a way, I think, isn't it great when they do? I'm comfortable. Are you? Aren't you comfortable when you're working with a family that's accepted it? When a family hasn't accepted it, it is difficult. And sometimes I know healthcare providers or us, I'm not sure if I felt this way as a doula, I don't think so, because they always had me to process with. But as a hospice nurse, when people were not accepting that they were dying, it was hard on me in every way. I was triggered. I wanted an outcome. I wanted them to get it because I thought it'd be better for them if they did. Maybe it is, but you know what? I think us pushing people there, our response, our intuitive gut thing is to survive. Every movie you ever see, they're trying to survive the whole movie, James Bond and all, every movie you can think of, they're trying to survive. So to constantly tell people that you need to accept your dying when our whole being for most people is to live, I think, just like everything else, we come to our awarenesses from inside us out, inside out. We might get a consciousness from somebody outside, but the actual transformation comes from me going, oh, and it usually comes from me talking it out. That's why I'm really a believer that if every doula out there or conscientious person who's comfortable with dying could just be quiet and let people work it out, they will come to their own aha if they have space. Because when someone's talking to me or somebody like you, somebody they know who knows end of life, and I'm not pushing my agenda that you need to accept this or you need to do your advanced directives, and I'm just sitting there and they're talking stuff out, and every now and then they ask me a question and I answer it shortly with a short answer. that gives them another piece to chew on. They keep talking. If we could all just do that, I think we could change the world, instead of being on this rampage of everybody needing to accept everything. Um, you
Yeah.
know?
So if we could come to other people without really an agenda and
Yeah,
without judging them, but be willing to be with them and sit with them, regardless of what their journey looks like, whatever they're going
whatever.
through is their thing. It's their path. It's their journey, but we can be there to support them and hold space for them without trying
Even,
to push them one way or another.
well, I think people want to, I mean, what I see mostly is people want people to have a good death. We all seem to be in this because we want people to die well, have peace and possibility. I love that title Dr. Bayek has, Peace and Possibilities, dying well, peace and possibilities at the end of life. I love that. And that's what we want. And then I think that goal gets us stuck in what it needs to look like. And I've seen people have terrible deaths. I'm sure you have too, especially on the oncology floor when nobody's accepting dying and it's looking you right in the face and they do that last chemo treatment an hour before you're dead. Like we've all seen that are in this field. So I've seen terrible deaths. And so I've seen beautiful deaths. I remember this one man I'm thinking of on the oncology floor. He was raging all the way to the week when he was to becoming unresponsive. And it was the most painful thing for his wife and his son. And he was that way, just raging, ugly, mean to them, terrible. They were crying all the time. It was the most difficult thing to stand by. And I didn't know what to do at the time. And since I was so new and so green, I was in my first 6 months as a GN. I didn't know what to do. So I was quiet, just like, the pastor said. And they thanked me for being so supportive. I felt so inadequate. But that's another time where it was in my bones. My goodness, I didn't say a word. I didn't really get it because I just thought, I don't know. But then, like the lessons we learn, eventually we do get our ahas as practitioners.
Yeah, and that's kind of the blessing of beginner's mind is sometimes
Yeah,
we're at our best when we don't know
yeah,
as much because we don't have very much to say, and that makes it easier for us to sit and listen. And I've always felt that the curse of expertise, of learning too much
yeah,
and knowing too much, it makes you feel like, oh, but I
yeah,
know all these things I could tell you right now
yeah,
if you would just listen
yeah.
to me.
You know what's real profound to me right now, is that, so when I didn't know what to say, they felt supported. Okay, that was total green. And, I'm so grateful they felt supported. Okay, so now the journey happened. And how now with awareness, like you just said, the expertise, I still got to stay in that place. And to now be quiet takes a tremendous amount of awareness and effort to not share and intervene and make better and suggest and all our suggestions and fixing. We do that, I really feel, because we're uncomfortable and because we think we know what a good dying experience would look like. But in the beginning, we don't know anything. And at the end, we have to empty our minds of everything we think we know.
Yeah, so true. I do remember though on hospice how many times I thought, wow, every day I see something new. There's something different that I haven't encountered
Seen
before.
before.
And
Yeah,
it keeps you humble in a way because
totally.
you can't just fall back on the way you did something before. You have to stay creative in the moment.
I think what's so valuable about people who work in hospice is you see so many exceptions to the rule, right? Because when someone's dying in healthcare, you might see that here and there, but you're in acute care hospital where they're always doing some kind of intervention, fixing or sending to ICU or surgery. Like in hospice, we're just day by day at home, doing the best we can and doing very well. Hospice, amazing medicine. But we're constantly trying out new things, right? So it's a constant trial and error art. You get it done, but you never know what you're going to end up having to do to get there. Well, once you've seen like 25, 50, 100 exceptions to the rules that they say, you know you can't walk in and say something. You know that there's an exception to this. So I think we're blessed with those of us who have seen that. We're blessed because we truly know we can't walk in with an agenda. We can't say, oh, it looks like this. You'll probably be dead in 2 days. Now, some of us are really good with predicting death. I was really good at it, but I never shared it. How I would share it was if I could see that person was probably going to be dead within a couple of days, what I would say is, look, it could be sooner, could be later, but I always like to plan for the sooner. Let's go ahead and get the kids home. So have them all fly in because it could be as soon as a couple of days. It could be a couple months. I don't know, but if it matters to them to see them alive, what do you think? And I would kind of say it like that. And I just think we have to be super careful how we talk to people. Oh, if they don't eat or drink, they'll be dead within 3 weeks. Okay, I've seen that. Not happen. And also, I was taking care of the physician's mother, and her Foley. She was a larger woman. She wasn't fat, but she was a big woman. Maybe she had tons of fluid, but she was putting out in her Foley, and it was 2 weeks, and she hadn't had anything. She was unresponsive. He called me over. He goes, "What is happening? What is happening?" Like he was beside himself. I'm like, I don't know. Well, please, let's talk about it. What do you think is happening? I don't know. Another time I was in ICU and I was sitting there going, I am the stupidest nurse. I just, this person, had foot drop, was dying of liver and all this. And I thought that she was going to die. And she started bouncing back as she had foot drop. And I was always taught when they have that foot drop, they're not coming back. Oh, well, she came back. And so the ER doctor came. I was so embarrassed. I just said, please talk to me. I'm so embarrassed. I'm probably just so untrained. Who knows? I never worked ICU, but what's happening? He goes, Deanna, I don't know what's happening. I have no idea what's happening. I'm as stumped as you are. So when you have enough of those conversations and you've seen enough crazy stuff, you can't come in with a template. And so that's what I try to teach doulas too, is that, look, don't think, they'll say, well, blah, 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 blah. I'll say, I'll tell you some stories. Nope. There's nothing you can hold your, get some security from other than have a support system around you. Any doulas that you're out there on your own, have a support system around you. Have people in your phone you can call. Don't do this by yourself. And have your little posse. I call mine my posse, my healers, the people I go to for different things. And, just don't be alone. Hospice isn't alone. Nobody in hospice works alone. Why would a doula think they don't need to have a group around them somehow where they talk to somebody, especially when you're working with a family? Yeah. Even less, don't be alone.
What you were just talking about makes me think that, in the beginning, we don't know anything and we know we don't know anything. And then we learn a lot and we think we know a lot. We think we might even think we know everything, but then we learn even more and we're back to thinking, but I don't really know anything. All of what I've learned over all this time has been proven wrong so many times. We're back to not knowing, which is kind of a good place to be. It seems like spiritually, that's like a place we're meant to be too, is to just always be open to whatever.
But people count on us to know. I mean, people count on us to know. That gives them security, for us. So it is like it's a fine line of knowing and being able to suggest, but at the same time, like you said, the beginner's mind in most ways, maybe when we're working with a family, the part of us that needs to direct, because people actually ask me to direct. Yeah. My default is not directing, but there are people that want you to take control. And most people are okay with me. I call it guiding from behind. As I catch people doing things right. acknowledge, oh my God, that was awesome. How did you feel when you saw this? Well, I knew, I said, okay, you knew that in your body, in your gut told you. So now you can trust your gut. When you see this, you know. Okay. So that's what I try to do. So that way I'm empowering the family to not depend on me, because they're the one caring for their loved one and going through the experience. I want them to be as empowered as possible. The doula, to me, is the same position. Is let's not have them depend on us for anything. As much as possible, let our default be they're affirming what they're catching, everything that's going right, and building confidence. And the ones that want you to take over, okay, take over.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that we need to be aware of our limitations and know what we don't know, but we need to also operate with confidence that I've seen enough, that I can help you make pretty good decisions, and we'll make everything, we can make everything go well here.
Mm-hmm. It's a journey of the people that are called to the, like, right? There are some people that don't like the word, it's a calling. They think that, I don't know, there are people that don't like that concept because everybody is able to serve their own dying. And that's true. I think there's a lot of clash between the folks who feel that this is everybody's deal, which it is. There's no conflict. Everybody can serve their own families, but not everybody wants to. Most people don't want to. They're scared or they don't know how. And so there's really no conflict with people that want to be professionals. I feel like there should be doulas in every angle, volunteering with hospitals, hospices, healthcare agencies, community organizations, professional doulas that just stay with their family, only work within their family. People that take doula training and don't help anybody, but they know that's one less anxious person in the world,
Yeah.
Just everybody. We need us everywhere. So there's a place for everyone. And, there are some people that maybe aren't aware to empower families. Maybe they do have the Superman complex and they want to save the day, because that's a consciousness that a lot of people aren't aware they have. I mean, there's the dark side of caregiving and care support and professional. There's the dark side. One of them is Superman. And so if you're not aware you have that, I mean, I definitely had that in my early days of hospice nursing, maybe most of my hospice, because you had to handle stuff. Yeah. And as a doula, that was one of the great transitions for me, transformations, is to go from realizing, no, I'm not the nurse case manager anymore. I'm not the on-call crisis nurse. That's not my role. And that was hard to transfer into not being Superman. I didn't notice it as Superman. Again, I took a training, and it was with Kirsten DeLeo. It was them. It was back then they were called with the spiritual care program, right? Yeah. But when you get to that, they created a doula, that doula retreat that was like 5 or 6 days that you came to. Yeah, they're the ones that said that. They're the ones that showed and shared with us there's like 7 or 8 really dark aspects to being a professional caregiver that we need to own, and they're embarrassed. It's embarrassing to own them, but when you see yourself in it, you need to say, okay, how do I transform out of this?
Yeah, such a good point. Well, Deanna, do you have any doula trainings coming up? Have you moved everything online because of COVID, or are you?
Well, we've always been. In 2010, like I said, there was nothing like this. And the only reason I did it was because people were asking me how I was doing it. And I had a blog. And that's the only reason anybody knew I was doing anything. I didn't know people around the world would see the blog. I was very naive. And so they wanted to know how I was doing it. So that's why I created the program. And it's always been online because it's just a person here and a person there that started, right? Canada, US and Argentina, I think were my first few, and California. So there's no way I was going to I did think about it because the shaman trainings, they have you come and you spend 5 or 6 days together or 2 weeks and you come back every 3 months. I thought about the different ways, but the way I really believe about this work is you're integrating it into the fabric of your life. It's who you are. I believe that it's what you get it in little by little and you put it down, you pick it up, and it's so much money to go leave where you are and to go do some kind of all day thing. You got to get the kids and the dogs and everything figured out. So I've always done it either by phone, through email, and now I have an online, we have an online learning center and we do coaching calls through Zoom. I didn't always do that, but that's what we do now. So just our training is our training, and it's very thorough and comprehensive and lifetime being with you over the long haul so that you're not alone out there. So that's what we're doing now. I just made that shift to serving the way I feel I'm most useful. And that is with my background, I'm most useful to people who want to do some big things, and they want to educate, and they want to work with organizations. They want to work with families. They want to build collectives. They want to, just people want to do all kinds of things. And some people want to do small things, which is awesome. It doesn't have to be big. But my talent is for people who want to eventually grow and expand,
And is the best place for people to go to learn more about what you're offering the qualityoflifecare.com?
Yeah, they can go there. It'll be redirected to Certified Care Doula. But I don't want to confuse anybody. They can go to qualityoflifecare.com. It'll be directed to our present new website, which is certifiedcaredoula.com. They'll find me. If you just put my name into Google, you'll find me. And yeah.
All right. Well, Deanna, it's been so much fun talking to you.
Oh, nice. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, what a pleasure to have unlimited time and just be able to really dive in, because there's so many topics we've wanted to talk to each other about in the past and never had time to do it. So,
and what's hard is if you come on, I've done all kinds of interviews too, and I know there's so often you want to focus on one thing, and that's so hard to do. So it's been lovely to kind of travel all over the place with you right now.
Yeah, we've been on our own journey together.
Yeah, we have. I remember you were out, I think before me. I remember when I started at 2005, but I think I started seeing you right away, right? You were coming out with your thing like then too, right?
It was a little later, around 2010 and 11 is when I came out.
Earlier than that.
I came out with a book, and then I started doing interviews way back then. Started doing some interviews, and I remember
finding you right when you started, because I thought, oh, that's so cool what you were doing. Yes.
And now everyone's interviewing everyone, but it's great. I know. But I like it though. It's great. Yeah, we need these conversations out there for people to hear. So
yeah. Thank you again, Karen.
Oh, thank you, Deanna. It's always such a joy. I can't wait till we can get together in person again someday soon.
Me too. Delta variant, go away. No other variants.
All of those variants.
All of them, please go away. Oh, well, thank you again. Take care.
Yes, you too. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Deanna Cochran. I had so much fun talking with her for this deep dive. And one thing that made a big impression on me was Deanna talking about the idea that we have to allow everyone to come to awareness about death and dying, but also about lots of other things in their lives in their own time frame, and that no matter how much we know or understand, no matter how much we believe that what we have to teach could help people live a better life and die a better death, we also have to be willing to accept people wherever they are, to meet them where they're coming from, and support them with the awareness that they have and whatever beliefs they have, and do the best that we can to be helpful to them without pushing our own agenda on them. And I think this is true for us in so many aspects right now of our lives in our society, that we have to stop believing that we know what's right for other people and be willing to accept people as they are and allow people to be on their own journeys, to learn things as they go and to discover things for themselves in the process of their own lives. True, we are here to be teachers as well, but teaching someone is a little bit different than pushing an agenda on someone. So I think that's a really good reminder for us right now, and that the basis of teaching begins with having respect for the other person and caring about them as a whole person. And our work in the end of life and helping people as they're experiencing death and dying can inform all of our lives and how we live every day and interact with other people. So I like this idea of remembering to let people have their own process and meet them where they are. So I want to remind you, if you enjoy this content, please let other people know about the End of Life University podcast. You can share an episode, or you can direct them to a specific platform where they might enjoy listening to previous episodes of the podcast. So the website for the podcast is eolupodcast.com, but you can also go to any of the podcast platforms and search for End of Life University. So you'll find it on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, and several other platforms. So take a listen to previous episodes, share them with others, and spread the word. If you want to offer even more support, you can go to my page at Patreon, patreon.com/EOLU, where you can sign up to make a small monthly contribution to help keep the podcast on the air. And you'll receive some bonuses like the End of Life update, which comes out once a month, and occasionally some movie reviews done by my husband and me that I place as a bonus on Patreon. So thank you to all of you who've been stepping up monthly for several years now to help support the podcast. It means everything to me. So until we're together again next week, remember, we're here for love. So face your fear, be ready for whatever happens next, and love each and every moment of your precious life. Bye-bye.